everybody. How's it going? Y'all know we are in mid-July. Mid-July. And school starts right after Labor Day. I can't. So anyway, I just got done with my summer job. You know, you got to do what you got to do for a little extra money. Anyway, but luckily for me, I get paid like throughout like the summer and everything. Like my salary is spread out, so that's a good thing. Anyway, I know there's been a lot going on, so let's start with the most important thing. Beyonce. You know what? You just do the damn thing everywhere you go. Every time, I actually like. You can tell Beyonce's a perfectionist by the way she's constantly competing against herself to improve with everything with each performance. Is it just me? And I feel like I had an amazing Beyonce experience. But the better she gets, the more it looks like Chicago, New York, those were like warm-ups. And I got a great show in the rain. Anyway, but Beyonce got robbed and none other than the ATL. Oh my gosh. Can we just act right? I live in New York, but you know, my heart is always in Georgia. But Bey got robbed, and some of her unreleased music and other stuff just got. And now I know Atlanta, which is to its credit, let me be clear, is a incredible city. It is a lovely city. It is not like Detroit. It isn't like Gary or something like that. It's not like that. It is where black people's dreams come true. Or it did before they've always had a black middle class that sold out, but building that cop city and pushing black people out. The city is all those black politicians that are selling them out. Just know you have now pushed out your voting base. Anyway, but yeah, people good for stealing stuff in that area. Julius, where were you? You slipping. Now, I realize that your job is to guard Beyonce, but it needs to be able to guard Beyonce, Blue, Rumi, Sir, and her things. Okay? So, Bey, fire your security. Just fire, not Julius, but just fire the other people. Okay? And I just want to say, if B can get robbed with all her motorcade and all the levels of privacy and security, y'all should know the president can get robbed too. All right, because we know his security ain't that. And that, never mind. I knew I should have gone to the Cowboy Carter show in Atlanta, because Atlanta knows what to do when it comes to Beyonce. They showed up with Renaissance and Cowboy Carter. Beyonce knows ATL loves her and Atlanta loves her back. After Houston fucked up the car, okay, and she had to retire it, Beyonce, I think you should donate that. Well, I can't say it anymore because we don't know what they're going to take from us. But, you know, that's one of those things you can send to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I think they'd be happy to have it because the mothership from George Clinton is actually in that museum. I know, I saw it and I have several pictures of it. Anyway, Beyonce, this is what I'm talking about. When I am just, every time you even think, or we used to think, I did at least, like from Survivor to Destiny Fulfilled to Crazy in Love, Dangerously in Love to B-Day to I Am Sasha Fierce. Like, just when you think or thought maybe she won't be able to outdo herself, and she got a fucking golden horse flying through the air. I said, Beyonce. Now, I'm not gonna lie, in New York, I was worried about your safety, and there wasn't no glitch. I was just worried. And honestly, when I saw that car go down, it let me know that if something really happens to Beyonce ever, and I pray to God it doesn't, tragically or anything like that, if something has been, I would be fucked up. I was so scared watching that video. Whew. You know, Rumi had to be in the back crying, worried about her mother. That's why they had to get rid of that car. But she flying on a damn golden horse. I'm calling it flying. I don't care if it has strings. Anyway, girl, you bad. Just do whatever the hell you want, because whatever the hell you want is working out. Anyway, so Rashida, blast from the past, because I don't watch Love and Hip Hop. You know, I mean, it was dying before COVID hit, but like, it really went down. You know, there was a heyday for that. Now, Rashida is apparently still trying to make her whack ass rap music. As I accidentally ran into on TikTok on my For You page, and she wants us to know she's never leaving Kirk. Now, I know there is a good, strong, solid, consistent 40 to 50% of people who go, yeah, we knew that. Also, just so you know, I really do hate to call a woman stupid or a person stupid and really mean it, right? Like to really mean it. But I really do think Rashida is fucking stupid. And I would say, we can sit up here and say Kirk has brainwashed her or something, but I think we'd be giving Kirk too much credit. Like, I mean, I really am trying to figure out, like, why she keeps allowing herself to be embarrassed. Because you just gave him a license to go and do whatever the fuck he wants to do. We all know he'll do you wrong, but you, for some reason, will be loyal to this motherfucker. And then pretend that you gonna leave him, and we all know you're not. But my thing with you is, I just, like, do y'all think Rashida's being physically abused? I mean, obviously, she's emotionally abused in the sense that she has to be feeling like, I know my eyebrows are uneven, I accidentally did it, but I have to let them go back in, so if you're staring at that, don't make fun of me, okay? It happens. And if you didn't notice now, I've drawn attention to it. Anyway, but, like, you think maybe she's being, certainly emotionally, because you have to go through that process of feeling like, why am I not enough? Which I think every woman who's been cheated on has been through, okay? And that's pretty much all of them. Certainly if they're heterosexual. I just don't get it. And then for you to tell us that, like, that shit is not a flex. You telling us you were married 25 years with this motherfucker? And not only that, married 25 years, and then we watched a big chunk of it on TV in the outright ways in which he has disrespected you. The only one that seemed to have some damn sense, and she don't really have sense, but your mama riding over his bicycle with her car. That's how you do it. Okay, anyway, so I don't want to waste no time, but girl, bye. Anyway, New York City mayoral race is continuing to heat up just like the temperature in the city. All right, so it thundered up a storm. I mean, it was a bad thunderstorm last night. Awful. Somebody asked me about my car. I said, oh, I had to put it in the deck overnight because they doing milling out here. Anyway, Zohran is still winning amongst the New York City voters. Okay, Andrew Cuomo came out and said he's still going to run. After he gave his concession speech as a Democrat, he's going to do this as an independent. Cuomo, and this is what I thought before we actually had the Democratic primary in New York. And like I said, by and large in New York, the primary is the election. You keep saying he has ideas. No, he has slogans, but not solutions. No, he's able to literally explain it. You just keep telling us a bunch of BS. Like the reason why the city's a mess is because we defunded the police. No, we did not. No, we did not. Okay, stop it. Stop it. You can defund education all day, and that's true. And what kills me is that the governor, whole racist, sorry ass, who did congestion pricing to try to get people off the highways and onto the subways, you and her are basically talking about how unsafe the subways are. So which one is it? You gonna give congestion pricing, try to get people back on the subways to keep them unsafe? Or you gonna do congestion price? We're talking about $9 a trip. So that's $18 a day for some people who have to drive in and out, or who may have kids or live like in a far borough, like the tip of Queens or Bay Ridge in Brooklyn. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, what the hell? And they're just such liars, and they're so used to us going for it in the establishment Democratic Party, and now that we have another choice, some of y'all are really mad. Some of y'all mad y'all can't find nothing to complain about. Where's Jill Stein? Where's her support? Where's Cornel West? He wanted to go from professor to president. If y'all don't get out of here. So I remember thinking at the beginning of the primaries, back to what I was saying before I got off. I said, if Cuomo wins the New York City Democratic, nomination, he'll be president by 2028. I said that. And I said to myself, but if he loses, his political career is over. And if he loses this, and there's a good chance that he will, that both of them just keep, I'll get to that both in a second. Every time that he says something negative about Zohran, people, the Democratic Rogue Party, well, Rogue News, should I say, it's where they are emphasizing Democrats who are really trying to change the system. Some of them younger, some of them older, people who are not funded by billionaires, like piece of shit, Bill Ackman and stuff. So anyway, Eric Adams, our current mayor, who is still not doing anything but making TikTok videos, who was going on Drink Champs as of last year, and he does this sort of cheap blackness when he gets into trouble. Like, we did not vote for you like that. That old black contingent in different parts of New York that just believe in kind of supporting a black person no matter what, because they're corrupt politicians like ugly ass Inez Dickens. You can look her up. I don't give a fuck. The way she talked down to black people when we were having a city meeting one time, and she was like, yeah, the reason why our kids are so good at track and basketball is because they like to run over the place, this and the other. But see, the thing is, they just running all over the city with no this, that, and the other. And back then, people would get in trouble even by your neighbors, this, that, and the other. But that doesn't exist anymore. Yes, bitch, it doesn't. And you want to know why? Because somebody in that generation, your generation, has dropped the ball. Okay, so if you weren't so busy talking down to us, meanwhile, she had Governor Hochul's first lieutenant governor. Okay, Hochul's first lieutenant governor is Brandon somebody who got ousted like months later because he had all these charges. I love how that didn't make the news the same way Cuomo's allegations did. You mean to tell me? And she just threw that black man in there because she just wanted to pretend like she wasn't racist, and he's a piece of shit and has been. And he had all these federal charges and stuff. Lieutenant Hochul's first lieutenant governor. I want to say Brandon, but I just didn't. Brian Benjamin, not Brandon. Brian Benjamin. Because he had all of these charges, of corruption and things like that, and he was the same one sitting in that meeting where Inez Dickens like laughing, yeah, like this is y'all's fault, other black people. I can't stand Negroes like that. Okay, and they still out here screaming for Eric Adams. But anyway, Eric Adams decided he was going to get on TV and give a speech and call Andrew Cuomo a double-digit loser. Because he fell 12 points behind in the final rankings of the votes behind Mom Donnie. Now, I'm not going to lie, something about that gave me a key, because everything about Eric Adams is also a loser. Then he starts trying to give us his mini resume, and he said, I have a master's in public administration. You ain't mastered a damn thing. But anyway, but a PhD in Andrew. I said, if you and Andrew Cuomo going back and forth, when you have Bill Ackman giving both of y'all money, like some pansies, like, I just can't with it. Y'all are fighting each other like y'all are really each other's competition. Eric Adams, you're incompetent. Now, do I think that Andrew Cuomo is competent, yet unwilling to change his perspective? Yes. I am not going to ever take COVID from that man. Nevertheless, moving on. Adams, but you dropped out of the Democratic primary in New York to avoid being held accountable by New Yorkers and other Democrats, because them 8 loaded guns that went with all the other candidates and pointed them at Cuomo, trust and believe they would have been pointed at both of y'all had you participated. Okay? So anyway, the city's a fucking mess. Cuomo said he's in it to win it. He's in it and he's going to lose it. But okay. Democrats, this quote unquote trying to rebrand. Let me tell you what's pissing me off is the Democratic Party. The issue is not that they need to rebrand. What they do need to understand is democracy. Okay? And stop giving us people we don't fucking want and funding them and going around the process. even on the federal level of like the Democratic National Convention. For example, stop giving us people we did not vote for. We voted for Bernie Sanders, and by we, I mean New York and most Democrats across the country. Y'all gave us Hillary, despite the votes being in Bernie Sanders' favor, and you have people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is still able to serve in Congress for some reason, who is the one who did that. It was proven that she cheated for Hillary. We didn't want Hillary. Obama calling Democrats to drop out of the Democratic primary race in 2020 when Biden wasn't even debating people so he could get the nomination after the fact. Y'all keep giving us people we didn't ask for. Kamala Harris had 100 days to pull up a campaign. And let me tell you something. She did the impossible. And like they always do with black women, I'm not going to debate nobody over her Indian heritage. She black enough, okay? And I'm just not here for the bullshit. Now, granted, if we did have more time, we would. You have Obama, who's sitting up here, waited like a fucking week to come out for Kamala Harris. But anyway, did y'all ever hear that story that in 2016, Joe Biden actually wanted the nomination to be president, and he was vice president? It was kind of a natural, not natural, but it was, we've seen that kind of succession happen. And Obama, at the end of his term, still had very high approval ratings, certainly for a lame duck president. And by that, I mean he was just in his second term, didn't have to be reelected. And Obama made it clear, despite Joseph Biden being his vice president, he was going to support Hillary. Hillary, the wife of the same man who told Ted Kennedy, not the one in Louisiana, Ted Kennedy of the Kennedy family, that why are you supporting this guy named Obama? That guy would have been getting us coffee a couple of years ago. That's who he decided. Now that's some self-hate for your ass. The same woman, it was not John McCain. It was not the Republicans that went and dug up that stuff on Jeremiah Wright in Chicago of his former church. It was Hillary Clinton. That happened during the Democratic primaries. And that stuff made its way around as if Jeremiah Wright was crazy for calling out racism. That's the bitch you decided to endorse? Miss me. Miss me. So, and after, because you know, Trump won by a landslide that first time. And certainly in terms of electoral college, but the electoral college is still part of the process. They said that night, and this is recorded, this is in the book. The title escapes me. That night, because you know, Barack Obama was still president even in November. And Joe Biden picked up the phone and he said, when they called the election, he said, "Boss, I told you," and hung up. Okay? So while Barack Obama is having this whole self-hate thing because he needs so badly to prove to white people that don't like him that they should accept him because he grew up in a family full of white people who I'm sure loved him as an individual, but if you read his book, who said horrible things about African Americans. And so he grew up trying to prove to white people why they should like him, but also despising the same people his family despised, which are black people. He hates himself. Anyway, so Obama telling the Democrats they need to toughen up. Let me just go ahead and let y'all know. Right message, wrong messenger. Okay, because we all know he bitched up every time he had an opportunity. And granted, it was at a Democratic fundraiser, so it's with a certain company in New Jersey, but he knew this would be public. And he said, look, it's going to require a little less navel gazing, okay? Less whining and being in fetal positions. I said, I know you ain't talking. The way you back down on forms of health care, I mean, don't get me wrong, Obamacare helped. There was still a lot of people uninsured, okay? Because you back down, it would not, like, stand your ground. People who told you they were committed to your failure, it didn't make a difference. They're incorrigible. I don't know why. Some of y'all who didn't grow up down south don't understand them kind of white people. Or you've mind-fucked yourself into believing that these white people up north are so different. They're not. It's better with their PR. Anyway, and he runs his mouth at the worst times to talk. Okay? Like they're waiting well over a week to endorse Kamala Harris, and she only had 100 days Because you wanted to be the only Negro at the party. You wanted to be the only one who said that. And you're not even black like that. Honestly, if we keeping it real, Barack Obama has never called himself African American other than on the census. He always refers to himself as a mixed kid from Hawaii. Anyway, and calling for this open process with Nancy Pelosi, skip right over the second highest position in this country and the second most powerful person in the world as a result, and acting like that black woman was invisible. Why didn't you speak up then, motherfucker? You part of the problem. And we knew with the long time to take for an endorsement, especially when Joe Biden dropped out immediately and endorsed his vice president. Yeah, he took too long, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. And those failed, empty gestures that you had when Trayvon Martin was murdered, when Sandra Bland was murdered, when Michael Brown was murdered, when Black Lives Matter called you out. Black Lives Matter started under Barack Obama's bullshit. When you saw all them tanks in Ferguson trying to, threaten black people who were fighting back, Obama sent those in, not George Bush. Those were military tanks. That was the shit they were using in Iraq on their own citizens. He invited that cop that arrested Henry Louis Gates as soon as he stepped over his door to a fucking beer summit. Fuck you. You want to tell somebody you need to toughen up? You are a whole bitch. Okay? Anyway, so Democrats that, according to CBS, that are possibly considering a presidential run in 2028, Gavin Newsom of California. First of all, he's the California governor. I don't know why the rumor started existing, because the establishment Democrats wanted it to exist. That, Joe Biden was going to want Gavin Newsom to succeed him or whatever. By that time, Joe Biden's brain was gone. Like, you could tell he was running out of gas. I mean, he's still alive, but you get what I mean. Anybody with that many fillers in their face is not to be trusted. Not to mention he's from the state of California, but nevertheless, anybody who does that shit to their face and has their hair looking like a news anchor from the 1990s, you can't trust them kind of people. He will not be a good president. Moving on. All right. Representative Ro Khanna in California, I don't know nothing about him, but I will tell you, I do look at political patterns. Anybody in the House of Representatives oftentimes does not win presidential campaigns. Senators have a good shot. Barack Obama. And several others, right? Governors of states have a good shot. George Bush, Bill Clinton, governor of Arkansas, George Bush, governor of Texas. Those people tend to have a good setup, right? That's not gonna work. Governor Andy Beshear, he was elected in Kentucky after that Sandra Bland stuff or whatever, when they tried to put a black Republican in our faces. Anyway, Rahm Emanuel, who fucked over Chicago, and I don't want to hear about how Chicago politics are already corrupt. Yes, we know. Yeah, as my father said, because he went to University of Chicago, and my brother did too, but that was for graduate school, not undergrad. They went to Morehouse for undergrad. But anyway, my father always said that Chicago is the only city in the world where under the table deals are done over the table. The only person that can take the cake over New York when it comes to corrupt politics is Chicago. Now, Rahm Emanuel, don't think I forgot how you fucked over the Chicago public school system. And we can sit up here and say the public school system has always had problems at it. Yeah, it has. And you didn't help it. Out of the Obama administration, you go and run, and then, speaking of defunding education, misappropriating money, not caring about those low-ass fucking test scores, not supporting the Chicago Teachers Union. Fuck you. And y'all keep fighting Brandon Johnson. Granted, I don't live in Chicago, but Brandon Johnson be handling them white people, okay? In the media, every time I see him. Because I follow Chicago news on TikTok, because, I like to see that. But Rahm Emanuel, don't forget all those black kids that you have essentially left, I don't want to say illiterate, but certainly undereducated. Go to hell. Okay, that's where you can fucking go. Anyway, and they paid the greatest price under his corrupt leadership. And Pete Buttigieg, he had been a mayor and he was the transportation secretary under Biden. I just think too many runs for the president can turn people off. Call me when, in other words, call me when y'all find the candidate that we want. Anyway, actually don't call me. Zohran, you tell us about your people and your group. All right, I did watch the Nelly and Ashanti stuff while I was grading papers and writing comments. I'm not gonna lie. I actually thought it was worse the way everybody kept saying that Ashanti needed to stay single and childless. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna give my honest opinion. I do think Nelly and Ashanti are cute together. I think Ashanti is a sweet person, and she just has the regular angst of a first-time mother. Okay? I think they like each other. Now, please tell me why the fuck they got married not knowing where the hell they gonna live. St. Louis is not a spot like that. It's okay to go back home after you retire. And that's how I know Nelly is one of them country, backwards, limited kind of black people. He's just one of them. He can't get out. You know, it's one thing not to forget where you come from, because I do think that's important. But the fact, oh, I ain't gonna never be in New York, this, that, the other. Ashanti, that's where you make your money. And quite frankly, he can make some too. And that to me shouldn't even be no big decision. He likes being a big fish in a small pond. Let's just keep it real. Okay? You got to think about, one, your child's education. Okay, where they can get a good one. Where they can be. The familial aspect, I'm sure, is great. Y'all can fly them up as often as needed. I know his grandmother and stuff. I get it. But fuck Nelly. Y'all can't. How y'all gonna compromise if he done already made up his mind? He ain't gonna never live in New York. Miss me. All right. So Nelly said, with his ignorance. Speaking of his ignorance. Yep. And I got a mouthful. He said no other president has ever invited him to the inauguration to perform before. And if people don't want him to perform, I mean, my response is, do y'all believe in DEI or not? So you go and perform for the same bastard, okay, who said he was going to destroy DEI and is doing a hell of a job at it, and then trying to tell us that us not supporting you and your whack ass 2000 hits. And don't get me wrong, they were hot in the moment. I'm not talking about Country Grandma like that was a solid album. I'm talking about like that. A lot of that stuff, if you heard it now, you'd be like, what? Boots with the fur. It's kind of like, you know, it was cute for the moment. Anyway, first of all, I just want to go on record and say I told y'all about Nelly some time ago. And what's more, my alma mater told y'all about him. Okay? When he did the tip drill video in like 2003 or 2002, and then requested to do a bone marrow drive at Spelman because his sister was suffering from a form of cancer and dealing with bone marrow and that kind of thing. Totally understandable. Now, to request to do the drive at Spelman of all places, an HBCU for women, is wild. And an HBCU for women, because Bennett, whatever, I don't give a fuck. No, First of all, they became a women's college after we did, and their only claim to fame is that they're the sister school of Morehouse. Well, by all means, we are women that stand on our own, but I'm talking about a school with black feminist goals and intentions, okay? Why did you want to hold it there? And I realize that, you know, there's a lack of black bone marrow donators and so on and so forth. We are talking about Morehouse being directly across the street. And if you had done an ounce of research, or your team, the Atlanta University Center, Clark has a much larger campus, holding it at Emory, but you wouldn't dare offend those white people, would you? Atlanta as a city at that point was still black, heavily black. Like, I'm not talking about like it is now, and it's like not even 50% anymore. But anyway, all Spelman College students asked him to do, along with the administration, was to sit down and have a conversation with them, like in a, you know, in a forum, right? About his depiction of black women and their bodies in his videos. Because he's swiping a credit card down. I mean, the most degrading. I mean, even when we look back on it, Like, that stuff is horrific. The fact that that was running the way it was on TV was outrageous. And they said, we'll be willing to host the bone marrow drive. But we need to have a conversation about this because this is not what we represent. And you're asking us to host something and give it in your name, and this is not what we stand for. Any institution, certainly with college age women and women getting their college education, should have responded that way. He said no. He wasn't going to do it. And still expected by his request to have this bone marrow drive on our campus. So they said, no, you can't have it here. First of all, I hate that I even had to give this disclaimer because I don't want to even make it seem like, but just in case, nobody is happy that his sister passed away. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I know that has to be a different kind of pain. But she didn't die because Spelman didn't host the bone marrow drive. Okay? Spelman is a small, private HBCU. Sure, he could have had it there. But to be mad at an HBCU for women who wouldn't host it after your degradation of women, and the reason why you didn't have that conversation is because you knew you didn't have a good response to that shit. And then 10 years later in 2013, for you to sit down with Mark Lamont Hill on his Huffington Post news show, because I remember watching this live, and be asked if in retrospect, would you have done something differently with the whole situation with Spelman, the bone marrow drive, and his response was, I would have kicked somebody's ass. So Mark Lamont Hill goes, you would have kicked somebody's ass? Yes. Not, I didn't consider the urgency of the moment, and maybe I should have just moved it somewhere else, or not, I should have maybe chosen just another venue, because clearly our morals didn't align. But to threaten violence against black women after making your money off of physically degrading and demeaning black women, and then thinking because you help your mama, your grandmama, your sister, your daughter, that somehow that cleans it all up. Fuck you. Okay? So I'm here to tell y'all, he been that kind of black man. Ain't no sense in y'all doing all these think pieces acting like y'all didn't know. And if you don't know, now you know. Anyway, basically threatening violence against black women who didn't allow him to infiltrate their campus with his bullshit while making his money off of our degradation. Sorry, these aren't those black women. And like I said, God bless the dead. I'm sorry that she passed. And I know that has to be painful for her kids, for him. But the urgency of that moment should have required you to pull back and say, you know what, this is about my sister. Because then to put it on Spelman College and say, well, this was about my sister dying, this, that, and the other, as he does, and you can Google the interview, as if I wasn't there at the time. I graduated in 2010, so I got there in 2006. As if Spelman was somehow responsible for all of it. I mean, it just tells you what kind of personality he has. Why not have it in St. Louis? But whatever. So it doesn't surprise me that he would have no problem dumping his babies on Ashanti, despite the fact that she's still working. He's, going, doing these retro tours or whatever, acting like she's not doing the same thing. She was performing until she was like 8.5 months pregnant. And granted, women can do whatever they want to do. Now, Beyonce has managed to pull it off. I think she has done a spectacular job of raising her kids. And I think having them come on stage with her and travel with her on tour is her way of keeping her family loving and together. And it seems to be working out great for her. Beyonce is also, her work ethic is just unmatched. Okay? That being said, here Nelly is telling her it's her responsibility to take care of their babies. And that at 3, he's going to be part of the crew while she teaches him how to talk and letters and all this other stuff. I honestly felt like as a man, he should have felt a way about Ashanti feeling the need to perform until she was 8.5 months pregnant. and you're her husband. Now that's the time you work your ass off so she don't have to. Now, I'm not saying that Ashanti shouldn't have wanted to make her own money. I just feel like it should have appeared as more of an option for Ashanti. Okay? And that he's a coon who will perform his whack-ass 2,000 hits for a white audience who don't even know who he is. And went and spit on him if his hair was on fire, but that's the way he treats the black woman he married. Best predictor of the future is the past, okay, in terms of human behavior. Anyway, Love and Marriage Huntsville, for some reason, is coming back on the air, all right? And I found this out via TikTok. So Lance has a baby. Brenda's got a baby, but Brenda's barely got a brain. A damn shame. Brenda can hardly spell her name. And if we're keeping it real, most people in this cast probably can't even. But Brenda had an excuse. They don't. Anyway, so Lance apparently has a baby. Didn't tell Destiny about it. They seem like they were dating on and off anyway, just messing around. Destiny's going to date his godbrother on TV. Nell is going to be mad about it. Your son had a whole baby. Stay out of your child's business. He clearly has been married twice. Something is wrong with his character. He's too young for that. Anyway, so Nell's not going to mind her business per usual, and she's going to be on there losing her mind. Tisha and Kimmy are still pick-me's. They can't carry a show. They're too busy trying to make sure that, people think or Tisha especially thinks she's independent when we all know she's not independent on Marceau. That fake confidence she has in all the pictures, trying to be male, it's not going to work. She is not a star. Okay, and just because they put you at the opening credits does not make you a star. Okay? You can't make a lame a star, Tisha, in the same way you can't make a hoe into a housewife. Now, I'm not comparing that. I'm just saying it's on that level of what you can't do. Anyway, those are my thoughts for now. Y'all gonna watch? Let me know if y'all are, though. All right. I'll talk to y'all soon enough.